YouTube, what's going on? It's J&A Exotics, and we're back with another video. Now, today I wanted to talk to you guys about the top 5 exotic pets, being reptiles and amphibians, that make the best pet for moderate level keepers. Now, let's jump into it. So, number 5 on the list is going to be the central banded gecko. Now, these guys are part of the Coleonyx genus. They're one of the smaller members. These guys are Coleonyx mitratus, and they can be found in Central America, from Guatemala to Costa Rica. Although central banded geckos are a very hardy species, they're not quite bulletproof as, let's say, a bearded dragon. Now, these guys do require an ambient humidity level inside of the enclosure, around 50 to 60%, although they will spend the majority of their time under humid microclimates, such as underneath cork rounds, underneath leaves, hides, etc. But the ambient humidity level needs to be under 50 to 60% because it can lead to respiratory issues if it's substantially higher for longer periods of time. Now, central banded geckos should be kept in at least a 10 to 15 gallon enclosure. You could do a live planted bioactive enclosure, that's what I do, and you can provide a 3D background, if you will. Now, these guys are a nocturnal terrestrial species, and even though they are terrestrial, you do need to provide cork rounds and branches for them to climb, because they do love to climb and explore throughout their enclosure. Central banded geckos have a simple diet, they are insectivores, and they eat things like crickets, dubia roaches, mealworms, etc. Now, these guys overall are an amazing gecko. They have these cute little faces, I love them so much, and they're mainly a display pet for me. I kind of just sit back, relax, watch them. I will hold them every now and then, not too often, but incredible species. Now, number 4 on the list is going to be an amphibian, probably my favorite amphibian of all time. They're incredible. This is going to be the Vietnamese mossy frog. Now, as their name says, these guys are from Vietnam. They can be found in forest rivers, under tree trunks, tree roots. They love tannin-rich water. They can also be found in limestone caves and on limestone cliffs that are very humid. Now, the Vietnamese mossy frog's scientific name is Theladerma corticale. Now, that's kind of a tongue twister. I'm not a biologist. Hopefully that's pronounced right, but that's how I say it. Now, these guys require tannin-rich water. I call it clean, dirty water because it's not actually dirty. It's just tannin-rich from leaves and debris that fall into the water in the wild. Now, water that is too clean can actually cause bacterial issues with their skin. And if anyone's ever owned an amphibian, you know how sensitive they are, and that can and will kill them fast. These guys also prefer cooler temperatures than other species, which can be challenging and difficult if your house stays warm year-round. Now, I've owned this species in the past, and we actually just got 2 more at a reptile expo recently, and I hope that we purchase the male, because the male's call, and that's one of my favorite parts about this species actually, is listening to their call at night. It's not really a chirp or a bark, but it's like a soft, low-toned whistle. That's the call right there. That's spot on. If you listen to me doing that, that's what they sound like. I used to talk to mine, but regardless, you get the point. The call is awesome. The only other frog call that I like more than that are Dendrobates locomellis or red-eyed tree frogs. But other than that, Vietnamese mossy frogs, they take the cake. Vietnamese mossy frogs, they do love to climb and jump, so obviously you need an enclosure big enough to accommodate for that. I would say no smaller than an 18-24 front opening enclosure. Now, inside of their enclosure, you do need to supply them with plants, whether it be real or fake, it's entirely up to you. Cork rounds, branches, leaves, stuff for them to hide in, climb on, so they can feel safe and secure, as they would in nature. They will spend a majority of the time in the water though. Now, Vietnamese mossy frogs are also insectivores. These guys are going to eat crickets, dubia roaches. If you want to tongue feed them, you can. You could do any worm species like mealworms, waxworms, horned worms, as long as it's an appropriate size and they're not going to choke on it. But these guys are garbage disposals. They will eat everything. Now, number 3 on the list is a personal favorite species of mine, all-time favorite. They're intelligent. They will watch every single thing you do. You can interact with them. It's Varanthus acantharus, or the Ackie monitor. Now, these guys can be found in the northwest quadrant of Australia, and their tails, they have spines lined from the base of the tail all the way down to the tip, which is where they get their name, the spiny tail monitor. Now, these guys actually remind me of dinosaurs, if you will, specifically something like a Stegosaurus or an Ankylosaurus. Much, much smaller scale though. But the tail looks like a weapon. It looks like it could just do some damage if it whipped it at something. And that's where I get the mindset from. Obviously, they're not going to hurt you with it. I mean, they could possibly flick you with their tail, but they're so small, it's not gonna hurt you. Now what they do actually do with their tails is, let's say in the wild, there's an animal trying to eat it, an Ackie monitor is going to go, he's going to run to a tight rock crevice, he's going to wedge himself in between some rocks or whatever it may be, sticks, logs, whatever, and he's going to block the opening he went into with his tail. So if the predator actually tries to grab him, what he's actually going to get is a mouthful of hard, spiny tail. Now these guys can tame down to manageable levels. Obviously it depends where you get them. Captive bred individuals obviously handle better. You can get something like I did a few years back. This is before I had a YouTube channel. I had an Ackie monitor. I bought him when he was already established in life. He was captive bred, but the breeders never bothered with him. When it came time to feed him, they threw food in there, changed out the litter in the cage, and that was it. Now because of this, he wasn't used to or accustomed to people, so he was kind of a pain in the butt. I would get bit, scratched. It was a nightmare, but eventually he did tame down. He was always skittish and on edge though because of this. He was never 100% calm. But obviously on the internet, you can go and see videos, and these guys are puppy dog tame. As soon as you open the enclosure, they're coming running for food like a bearded dragon. And honestly, I would own these guys over a bearded dragon any day. They are awesome. Now Ackie monitors are incredible. Again, they're super active, so you're going to need to keep them in an enclosure at least 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. That is probably the bare minimum for an Ackie. Now these guys do like it hot, and obviously a 4 by 2 by 2 enclosure is going to be substantially harder to keep warm and to get the hot spot right than a 10-gallon. But that's why these guys are at the moderate level. It's doable. You're not heating an entire room. It's just a little bit more of a challenge. Now Ackies are great. They're acrobatic, they're fast, they're intelligent, they have an incredible food response. As soon as they see the crickets, you shake the cup, they're gonna go nuts, they know what's going on, they're gonna come out and eat. Now, Ackie monitors are going to eat things like dubia roaches, crickets, superworms, mealworms, locusts, etc., but they're also going to eat things a little more diverse than the other species on this list, such as smaller rodents that are appropriately sized, and eggs. So, picking between number 1 and 2 on this list was extremely difficult for me, and you're going to understand why in a second. But number 2 on this list is going to be Gastropholis prisina, or the green-keeled bellied lizard. These guys are just absolutely incredible. Now these guys can be found in Africa and coastal forests in Mozambique, Kenya, and Tanzania. Now green-keeled bellied lizards are extremely active, they love to explore, and they are arboreal and they love to climb. So you're going to need an enclosure to accommodate all these needs. I would say no smaller than a 24 tall, 18 deep, 24 wide enclosure. That should be adequate for a pair of this species. Now you're going to need to supply them within the enclosure with plants, whether they be fake or real. You need to supply them with cork rounds for them to be able to hide in and to climb on. It doesn't necessarily need to be cork rounds, you just need to supply them with hides that are elevated above the ground and branches and various other things for them to climb on. Now these guys are going to like it warmer, they're going to need a hot spot, and their humidity levels are going to need to be kept above moderate. Moderate I consider 50%. The ambient humidity in their enclosures should be kept around 65 to 70%. Now these guys are insectivores. They're going to eat things just like everybody else. Dubia roaches, mealworms, waxworms, crickets. Waxworms are more of a treat, but you get the point. Now one of the best parts about this species, and it's the most rewarding, why I love them so much, is the ability to become puppy dog tame. These guys are incredible, and I cannot recommend them enough. I'm currently obsessed with green-keeled bellied lizards, so it was very hard for me to not put them in number 1, but number 1 is going to be the emerald tree skink. Now the emerald tree skink, or Lamprolepis smaragdina, I believe that's how you pronounce their scientific name. I'm not entirely sure. No matter how many times I've tried, it doesn't get easier. But despite their scientific name being so difficult to pronounce, these guys are probably, in my opinion, the best pet reptile you can own ever. Now these guys are a hitchhiker species that is from Southeast Asia. They actually float on debris that is blown out from storms. They can be found in the Philippines, Indonesia, New Guinea. They're found all over the place. Now these guys are from Southeast Asia, so they're going to like it warm and they're going to need their enclosure humid. They're going to need an ambient tank humidity around 70%, and they're going to need a humidity increase around 80-85% at nighttime, which this can easily be achieved by, before lights out, just spray down the enclosure and you'll achieve this humidity. Now this is just my opinion. but I 100% believe it's true. Emerald tree skinks are the most active, sociable, intelligent skink out there. Now, I'm going to be speaking on captive bred individuals for that matter, not wild caught, because anything wild caught is probably not going to trust you and it's not going to understand what's going on. But with the captive bred individual, as soon as you walk up to the enclosure, you open the doors, these guys genuinely want to be out with you. For that matter, as soon as you walk in front of the enclosure, half the time these guys are already leaping and jumping over each other or whatever they're on just to come and see you. They genuinely want to come and spend time with you. Although emerald tree skink's primary diet is going to be insects such as dubia worms, that's a new thing, dubia roaches, calcium worms, crickets, mealworms, etc. These guys are omnivorous in the wild and actually eat fruits and flowers. Dubia worms. If you guys smash that subscribe button, J&A Exotics will send you the first of its kind, the dubia worm. Stay tuned. So you can offer these guys fruits as a treat. You can offer them a substitute. You can offer them crested gecko diet. And in the past, I've had great success feeding mine crested gecko diet. They do love it, and I fed them things like blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, banana, and these guys have devoured it. Emerald tree skinks love fruit as a treat. So as far as the tank size that they're going to need to be kept in, if you're going to be keeping 1 to 2 adult individuals, I would say don't keep them in anything smaller than an 18-24 front opening enclosure. These guys are extremely active. They are arboreal, so they're going to need the room to climb. You're going to need to provide a proper heat gradient for them. So I would not go smaller than that size enclosure. Obviously, bigger is always better. I used to keep mine. I had 5 emerald tree skinks, and I kept them in a 36 by 18 by 36 tall, and that was plenty of room for all of those. But as far as owning these guys go, that's it. They are number one. They are literally probably one of the best pet reptiles you could own ever. They are great. So there you guys have it. This is really the first time I'm doing a top 5s like this, especially in this format, but let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with the list? And do you guys like the new setup? Do you like the new mic? Let me know. If you guys did like the video, smash that subscribe button, drop a comment down below, hit the like button, and we'll see you in the next one.